Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of They're a Super Geek. I'm Mariam, and I'm here with my wonderful co-hosts, Jeremy and Kristin, and our wonderful guest for today, Yeonsoo Julian Kim. Tonight, we'll be playing Women Are Werewolves. But first, who are we? Their Super Geek is a one-shot AP livestream that highlights the voices of marginalized folks in TRPGs, and we also feature gender marginalized GMs and a diverse rotating cast. We are also a proud member of the Misdirected Mark Network. And so joining us tonight is the wonderful Yeonsoo Julian Kim, who's a wonderful TRPG designer and one of the designers for the wonderful game that we're going to be playing today. But before we begin our game, let's go around the table and introduce ourselves. Who are we, and where can we find you? And I'll start off with myself. I am Mariam. I am a TRPG writer, streamer, podcaster. I'm mostly known for working and playing and doing stuff in Sarsamine, which is the South Asian campaign setting that I'm writing, and that is me. You can follow me on Twitter at media_junkie, and I'm gonna pass it on to Jeremy.
Thanks, Mariam. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeremy. I use they, them pronouns. I'm an educator, I'm an educator, a designer, a game designer, and a streamer, mostly with TazGeek here. But I occasionally try to pop onto things over at Utopia. And my voice might be showing up on Well Seasoned Stories at some point as well. That's me. I'll talk more about where you can find my stuff later, but for now, I'm going to pass it off to Kristin.
Thanks, Jeremy. Hi, friends. I'm Kristin, she, her pronouns. You can find me on Twitter at KristenIsNoJedi. I am a tabletop role-playing game designer, writer. I do this wonderful live stream with two of my favorite people bi-weekly on Thursdays. And I also have a interview show that I co-host over on the Geek Spectative Network called Tabletop Babble. But I'll talk more about that at the end of the show. For now, I'm going to pass it over to Julian to talk about this fantastic game.
Thank you. I'm Yeonsoo Julian Kim. You all can call me Julian. And I am the co-designer of this game, Women Are Werewolves, along with my co-designer, Kaz Taylor. And yeah, it's a card-driven story game. It's coming to Kickstarter on October 26th. I'm almost entirely certain of that date. And I use they, them, and she, her pronouns and design largely in tabletop RPGs, but also LARPs and interactive fiction. And I do some cultural consulting as well. Now that I've introduced myself, should we just go ahead and jump in and I'll start describing the game for folks?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So by card-based storytelling game, what we mean by that is that the kind of core mechanic of the game is that we're going to be drawing cards. And you know, if we were at a physical table, we'd be drawing cards and reading prompts on them and then answering those prompts. And then following that, we'll also be asking follow-up questions of each other. And those can be leading questions that kind of like, suggest some kind of existing answer already. And they could also, they could be directly related to whatever prompt was just pulled, or they can be kind of more loosely thematically connected. But in this game, we're all going to be playing non-binary characters who are part of the same family. We're all cousins. And in this family, there are some, very gendered traditions, the way that there often are in many families. And one of these very gendered traditions and practices is that in this family, the women are werewolves. So when the full moon comes, they transform into their wolf forms and go out into the wilds to roam while the men stay at the house. And so we're going to be kind of exploring how do we as, non-binary characters fit into this space that's, kind of highly gendered. Is there a way to make a space for us while we're being our authentic selves, or do we need to find a space for ourselves elsewhere? So it's very much a game about self-discovery, finding where your boundaries are, how to set them, how to kind of negotiate them with family members, and kind of figuring out family dynamic stuff, as well as like figuring out kind of who you are at your core. as a heads up, this game does use exaggerated gender binary to explore the various ways that people can fall outside of it. And the prompts do use pretty heavily gendered language to represent the thinking of the family. So that's just something to kind of be aware of. And when it comes to werewolves and like, what do we mean by werewolves in this? It's largely up to us. Like every playthrough, it's wildly different. There's been some really wild werewolf mythology that's come out of this game in different playthroughs. The only thing that must be true is that the family that we belong to believes that women, as defined by the family, transform into wolves on the full moon, and men, also as defined by the family, do not. Whether the family's correct, how the family defines men and women, and whether there are other werewolf families out in the world who contradict this truth are all totally up to us throughout play. The game does not assume any other werewolf mythologies or tropes are true, so we can draw on any pop culture or obscure like werewolf media that you like, or come up with something that's just like totally wild that you've never actually seen in any werewolf show, comic, anything. But yeah, so the main cards that we'll be pulling are going to be divided into 3 decks, which will become kind of a game deck, which we'll be pulling from in order. And the 3 phases are werewolf, where we're going to be answering questions that kind of do a little bit of world building, explore what do we mean by werewolves? What does that look like? Then the next part is the gender deck, where we're going to be exploring questions that are more heavily related to gender. And then finally, we have the family deck, which will be having us kind of dig more into family relationships and dynamics and whatnot. In between those phases, we have interludes. So the thing that's different about an interlude card is that we will all be answering the same card and not asking any follow-up questions. So we'll all take turns answering the same question. And those interludes are chosen, they're different based on whatever family dynamic we've chosen ahead of time. And then at the very end, there's going to be the epilogue card, which acts like an interlude card. We'll all be answering the same question and not asking follow-up questions. And yeah, I guess that's a good time to go into some of that world building stuff we kind of did behind the scenes already. So generally, when at the start of this game, you draw what's called like a wilderness card. There's a set of different cards that represent different environments that the family home is located in, because within the game world, we have this monthly gathering during the full moon, and everyone gathers at the family home. And where that family home is can again change from playthrough to playthrough. Since we're in Halloween times, we're going to go ahead and do the kind of haunted forest setting. So as our backgrounds are kind of establishing for us. So think mist crawling through the trees, lots of like long shadows and strange sounds in the night, places that have maybe been forbidden for people to go. Weird local legends about hauntings and creepy stuff, all those vibes. And then I mentioned the family dynamic earlier, and the one that we chose for this playthrough is our family is well-meaning, but can be unintentionally hurtful. So they might be the kind of people who they really believe, they're doing their best, and maybe they are doing, what is essentially their best, but there's still those microaggressions present. There's potentially things along the lines of unintentionally misgendering people or assuming things, or, getting information from weird sources about gender, and just kind of things along those lines.
Why are you listening to Foxwo News? We're wolves.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah. I never thought about that like before. The Fox things have come up in many games before about like, oh yeah, the family of like Fox shapeshifters, but we've never talked about Fox News that's like related to like other potential animals out there. That's hilarious. What else? We drew our transformation milestone, which represents at what point do people in this family start potentially having a wolf form, like being able to transform into their wolf form. And we drew that it was after a physical, mental, or emotional milestone. And what we narrowed that down to was that it's specifically the first time someone experiences love or like joy like pretty significant love or joy after a period of intense grief. And that can look like a lot of different things. That can be grief because somebody has passed. That can be grief because of, loss of a relationship or loss of like a piece of your identity in some way. So we can interpret that very broadly. It's just that order of intense grief and then finally loving something or feeling joy again, whether it's a piece of music or a person or self-love. Again, interpret it very broadly. And I'm very excited to explore that. And yeah, I think now is a good time for everyone to introduce their characters. The things that we've all established and that I want you to share with everyone are, what are your name and pronouns? How old are you? Do you transform into a wolf when the full moon rises? Are you happy with or without a wolf form, or do you wish your body was different? And then finally, what do you do to unwind outside of the family gatherings? And Kristin, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So I will be playing Isabella, she, her pronouns. I'm a young adult, somewhere between 20 and 25 years old. So we kind of decided, and I won't speak for Mariam, but we kind of decided that some of us transform during different times and not during the full moon, or not just during the full moon. So Isabella does transform during the new moon. We'll see if she also transforms during a full moon. And then Isabella is happy with transformation, with wolf form. She loves it. She thinks she feels powerful and beautiful. And so she's really into this wolf form. And finally, what she does to unwind outside of family gatherings, which we all know can be stressful, is she bakes and cooks.
Nice. Mariam, let's go to your character next.
So my character is Beria, who uses they, them pronouns, and they're the same age as Isabella, because we are birthday twins. We're not actual twins, we're birthday twins. And I too, and I wonder if it's because of the time we were born, I seem to transform during the new moon, or at least I'm not limited to just the full moon. And initially, when I transformed the first time, it was very settling because it was very out of body experience. But over time, I'm starting to enjoy the things that I could do in wolf form that I wouldn't be able to do in my human form. And when I'm stressed out, the family gatherings and everything, I like to go to a picturesque place in the forest, which has this wonderful waterfall, and just sit over there and just take in nature.
Nice. Jeremy, let's talk about your character.
Thank you. So my character is named Jazz. I use she or they pronouns. I'm the baby. I am 17. And I don't transform, at least not yet. I always wondered what it would be like to transform, and I always just kind of assumed that I would. I guess I wondered if I would, but now that it seems like I don't. It seems like it hasn't happened. I still trying to figure out how I feel about that. Yeah, I'm not sure. In terms of what do I do to unwind, I always carry a notebook with me. I make comics, I draw and I write, and I'm most like, I feel best when I'm combining the two, when I'm creating comics about the world around me or about other worlds.
Nice. And I am playing Cass, which I now realize is extremely similar to my design partner, Cass's name. So we'll just emphasize this part of Cass there. We'll say it's an honor because Cass couldn't be here today. But Cass uses they, them pronouns, is 26 years old. They do not have a wolf form. And they I think what it is that I wish I could transform maybe a couple of times a year at most. but more than that seems like really overwhelming. And I wouldn't want to like, if starting to transform meant that I had to do it like every month or like more than just a couple of times throughout the year, like that just doesn't seem like it's worth it to me. And for fun in my downtime, I make scented candles, and I'm starting to think about selling them online and making like a small business out of it. And I go out into the wilderness around the house and elsewhere to look for inspiration for scents for my candles.
I have a question about those
yeah.
candles.
Oh yeah, go for it.
So do you make scents that are sort of like odd, but they smell really nice if you're like a wolf?
Oh yeah, totally. I think I make like, you know how there's some perfume companies out there that make like scents that people would automatically think like, why would anybody want this? It'll be like dirt or like some, you know, just like things that are like, or like burning something or other, burning rubber. I think my kind of goal is that I'm making scents that are going to be oddly appealing to people, but they like they wouldn't necessarily like read what's on it and be like, oh yeah, that's what I want to like smell in my house. So it's interesting scents for sure. And some that are probably like, I imagine people in the family either love them or hate them because sensitive noses for a lot of them.
Chocolate. Are you trying to kill me?
Yeah, that would be a very controversial candle to bring out for the holidays. And yeah, we have some relationships that we did establish ahead of time, and I will start with that. So Cass and Beria, we are partners in crime. And specifically what that looks like is that we're going out into like nature on our own when we're not supposed to be, and like into the places around the house that are kind of forbidden to us. And one of those places is like a secret waterfall that's really nice, as represented in the image. I point over here as if I know where it's actually showing up on screen.
I'm below you.
Below the waterfall. And so yeah, we're going out, we're doing danger nature, I guess.
Yep.
So there's a peaceful element to it, but it's also kind of like the family has been like, you can't go there by yourselves, or for whatever reason.
Is there caves behind
areas.
The waterfall?
There totally should be. Let's say they're caves. And yeah, that's kind of the gist of our relationship. Then Mariam, do you want to describe what your other character relationship is?
So my character relationship with Isabella is that we are BFFs, best friends forever. And it's partially because we grew up together, because, you know, we both share the same birth date, and I guess we shared all our birthdays together, whether we wanted to or not. But then at some point it became, yeah, this is cool, why wouldn't I?
Nice. And then Kristin, why don't we just keep going like in the chain of like establishing what the other relationship is?
Sure. So my relationship is with Jazz. It's Jazz, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, Jazz.
Okay. Just looking for it frantically. My relationship with Jazz is that we are confidants. So we were deciding between that and Rivals, but we decided to go with this one. It makes really good sense, I think, narratively, because since Jazz does not transform, I think that they are pretty honest about that with Isabella. And Isabella does not share with everyone how much she loves transforming or changing, but she does share that and confide those feelings with Jazz.
Yeah. And then for the relationship I got to define with Cass, Cass is Jazz's caregiver. So Jazz is no longer lives with their parents, and Cass is the one who now looks after Jazz.
Yeah. We'll get to explore all those feels in a little bit. So basically what it's going to look like now is that I am both playing a character and also playing the role of card deck for this. So I'll be sending you all your prompts. You read them out loud, and then you could take some time to think about your answer. And then once you give your answer, we'll not everybody has to ask follow-up questions. It's just kind of like if you're inspired to, and we're not limited to like everyone has to do 2 follow-up questions. It's kind of more free flow there. Ask as many as you like. And then we'll move on. If I give you a prompt and you're like, I don't want to answer that one, either because you just need to want to X card it, or maybe it contradicts something we established earlier, just let me know and I'll send you another one. But first things first, we establish who, we establish who is the first player in the turn order by figuring out who was the last person here who admired the beauty of the moon IRL.
Oh,
Probably not me, because I haven't looked out my window in like weeks. Like there could be a zombie apocalypse outside and I wouldn't have any idea.
we would
So-
tell you.
Okay.
We'd let you know.
That's what friends are for.
It's still a full moon, right? I looked at the moon last night or 2 nights ago. Jeremy?
I've been out trying to take pictures of the moon with my phone the past couple of nights. I think I even posted one on the Twitter. So
Congratulations, you win.
All right, I'm sending you the first question and then we'll figure out turn order from there.
Okay.
So I read it out loud, right?
Yes.
So you have never been able to forget the first time you saw a member of your family transform into a wolf. Who was it, and how did it change your perception of both them and yourself? Ooh,
That's a good one.
that is a good one. And it doesn't necessarily have to be one of us, right? No. I think I think it was though. I think that for whatever reason, I think it was Cass.
I don't have a wolf form though. So
Oh yeah, you don't have a wolf form. What am I talking about? It can't be you. Then in that case, I think that it was Isabella. I think it was the first person that I saw transform, the first member of the family. And I think in terms of how did it change my perception, she was always the cool older cousin, but like she was just so confident and so sure of herself as that wolf form, and it just I don't know, it made me think even more highly of her. Like she became this person that I really looked up to. And I think that was probably when I first started opening up about my feelings about, I don't know if I'm going to transform. I don't know how I feel about it, to her. And I think for me though, how it changed my perception of myself, is that I don't like when I saw her transformed, it doesn't look like me though. I think that I was like, you're so confident and so sure of yourself, but you're not, you're strong and these things that I don't even necessarily want to be strong. I think it made me wonder, like, what do I want to be? Because I don't think it's that, but I don't know. So it made me question a lot about like, what do I want to be?
Is Isabella aware of this, meaning that she's the first person you saw transform?
Oh, probably not. I think it was at a gathering and there were a lot of folks who transformed, but you were the person I was watching. Yeah. So I don't even know if you were the first transformation there, but you were like, because you were the cool older cousin. So I was watching you when you changed.
Yeah. Cool.
And was it Isabella's first time? Like, was it like sort of your debut, like your first moon?
Oh, if others were transforming, it must have been during a full moon, right?
Mhm.
So, no, I'm going to say it was my second, but everyone thought it was my first.
Okay.
Nice.
I love that.
Have you ever kind of considered maybe having a heart-to-heart with Isabella where you like bring this up because it's still like kind of holds significance in your mind?
No. I mean, the thought has crossed my mind, I guess, but I don't know. Like I think that she understands a lot, I think, about me, but I think that I don't know, I don't want her to think I'm weird.
I get that.
Yeah.
Do we have any other follow-up questions? If not, then I'm going to send this next prompt over to Kristin.
Okay. There are some wolf form traits that are considered to be particularly feminine. Who in your family is held up as the picture of femininity? Do they actively seek to uphold this image? What's funny about that question is that as Jeremy was talking about Isabella's transformation, I fully imagined her transforming with like the moon behind her, but she has these big gold hoop earrings in. So this is a funny question to follow that. So who in our family is held up to the picture as the picture of femininity? I'm going to say it is maybe like an aunt or a grandmother. It's like probably the person who's kind of considered to be the head of the family. And they absolutely actively seek to uphold this image. I think they're very traditional in feeling and also like talking about how transforming is very feminine. And it's important to them that we all kind of follow suit. I don't think they're particularly confrontational or mean about it. That's just kind of how they feel.
What is this family member's name? I feel like it would be good to have like a consistent person we can call back to in the future.
Really would be, except me and names, Julian, me and names. A name. Can we go with Sophie?
Name.
I actually want to X-card that name.
Oh, okay. I was watching Howl's Moving Castle. Sorry.
Oh, good movie.
I'm
looking around my bookshelf. I have a book called Olivia.
Olivia.
There if you want to go with Olivia.
I like Olivia. Is everyone good with Olivia?
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks for the suggestion. Olivia.
I was going to suggest Francine, but Olivia sounds a little better.
I like Francine too.
Francesca sounds like a very.
It
feels like a very like old, but also feminine name.
It does. And do we want it to be, since it's our family, do we want it to be like a great aunt or a grandmother, or does someone have another role in mind?
I'm good with like a matriarch, like a probably grandaunt, since we're all cousins, unless someone wants to be directly related.
She's an auntie.
Yeah, aunt.
Okay.
Auntie O.
Auntie O. Okay.
How would you describe your relationship with Aunt Olivia?
I think we get along okay. I don't think they come down hard on me. I think that so far they've been either like nonchalant or supportive. Maybe more nonchalant with me and kind of who I am. But it's not I don't think it's a negative relationship at this time, but they definitely don't know that I transform outside of the full moon. So that might change things if that were to become public knowledge.
think of any cool follow-up questions that come to mind.
Does Aunt Olivia have any favorites among us?
Oh,
Look,
I mean,
favorites are good.
yeah, my first thought was that would be Jazz, but what do you think, Jeremy? Yeah. I feel like Aunt Olivia has high hopes for you here.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
Has Aunt Olivia always been, for as long as like we've kind of been around, or have you been around at least, been the matriarch, or was there somebody before her?
Oh, maybe when we were really little, it was her sister, but now you're going to make me name her sister Francine, her sister Francine.
Yeah, there we go. There she is.
Thanks, Mariam. It was her sister Francine. I don't know what's more interesting, that Aunt Francine is not here anymore for whatever reason, or that she's just no longer the person in charge.
Can I add a little bit of like foreboding or foreshadowing or whatever?
Please.
And that Aunt Francine and Olivia are also birthday twins.
Yes. In which case, if it's okay, I think that Francine is still around, but just no longer the person in charge anymore.
Yeah.
I like how fast we can get into like the family tension.
Oh, I love it.
If that's it for follow-up questions, I will send the next prompt over to Mariam.
All right. When you were younger, you met another family that is similar to yours and made a friend. You still keep in contact to this day. Who are they and why are you envious of them? So with that question, the assumption is they're not really part of our family or inner circle. They're like a separate friend or family.
Yeah, I think it's like you can interpret it kind of as widely as you like, but I think it's kind of the gist of it is it's not the same family as like what we consider our family.
Okay. So I think I think they're a family that are very they don't believe in transformation at all. They've never come across transformations, and I think the family, specifically the parents of my friend, were very supportive of you get like you can do whatever you want, and I think my friend eventually came out as trans, and their parents just accepted it from day one. And they were like, okay, we will address you as this new name now. And if you need to go wardrobe shopping, we'll, here's some money, go have at thee. And I'm just envious of the parents did not even blink once at any of the changes my friend went through. And yes, I am thinking of a name while I am referring to my friend in the third person.
We have to stop creating NPCs.
Look, the questions make NPCs.
I know, I'm sorry.
I'll tell you a secret. Every single prompt in the werewolf stage asks for an NPC. So
I mean, good design, Julian, but darn it.
I think the name the name they go by now, because I will not even think about dead names, because then that's one less thing for me to think about. I think their name right now is Francesca.
It's a good name.
It is.
Yeah. Oh, go on.
I'm sorry. I'd follow up. I want to know, when you say that the family doesn't believe in transformations, do you mean that they think they don't happen, or do you mean they think they shouldn't happen? What kind of don't believe in?
They don't believe in sort of the more supernatural transformations, not in the when someone is trans. That's sort of what I meant by transformations. So they're very much like, science, atheist sort of general household of like the supernatural is not real.
Has Francesca, sorry, I was just gonna ask if Francesca's ever been over to the family home, like ever, or intermingled with our family.
Yes, once, and only during Halloween, because it's easier to explain. Never during any other time, because it would be very hard to explain why our house is the way it is, unironically.
Fair. Have you ever considered telling Francesca about our family?
I think I tried to, but Francesca kept interpreting it as sort of like a metaphor rather than literally, and I did not correct her.
Completely fair.
Sounds like a sitcom episode. I'm here for it. Any other follow-up questions? Then I will go to my prompt.
Yeah.
Which is, there is a small but important tradition that happens right before the women leave for the wilds. Which member of your family is the authority on this ritual? Is it symbolic, practical, or something in between? So I think Auntie Olivia has a husband named Anthony. First name that came to mind. And he's actually the one who is in charge of the kind of like small traditions that happen right before the women leave for the wilds. And I think there is like a special meal that's prepared, and it's kind of a potluck situation a lot of the time, where everyone, like every kind of like smaller family unit that's all coming to this house is expected to contribute something. But if somebody doesn't organize that whole thing, it's like everyone's going to end up bringing green beans kind of situation, instead of like everyone bringing like a different important part of this meal. So Anthony's in charge of like the spreadsheets. I imagine him having like a lot of spreadsheets for this organization process. And I think he is kind of like, I wanted to say like kind of the family accountant, but just like in that he does like a lot of administrative stuff of like keeping track of like everyone's most recent addresses and like
the cat herder.
Just kind of, yeah, like he's in charge of that, of like the nitty gritty of that stuff. And like specifically before the trip into the wilds, he is organizing like the timing of the food and like when everything needs to be microwaved or put in the oven, and like making sure the timing is like just right with like when like it's time to go. And then also he's in charge of the cleanup after that, and he's also in charge of kind of like making sure, okay, who is here this month, and getting a head count to make sure that everybody comes back safe. So it's like if 19 people are going out, 19 people are going to come back, and if like before sunrise that there's not that 19th back, it's time to send like a party out to make sure everything's okay. I think that's kind of what Anthony's role is in all of this.
Has there ever been a time where the head count was correct, but not the actual people?
I think like there is a story from, I think before any of us were actually like really like aware people. Like we were like, maybe like I was a child. I think I might be the oldest character here. But so I don't actually remember this, but it was essentially, it's supposed to be something that happened when I was basically a toddler, where Anthony, it used to be like a lot more loosey-goosey. And he didn't have all his spreadsheets back then. This is why he has all his spreadsheets now. Where he thought like everybody had come back, but in fact 2 people were missing, and it was like this is a big thing, and it took all the next day to find them. And it turned out that they had just like, they were new to transforming. They had gone like way far out, like out of the wilderness, and like had to hitchhike back basically. Like it was like a disaster, and everyone was like really freaked out that like, what if you had been discovered? What if this? What if that? Also, it's like, because we were in the creepy, eerie woods or like the haunted forest area, I think that also probably started some of like the myths about what's in the woods. That's scarier than werewolves. What are werewolves scared of?
Or like
Ghost
19
werewolf.
wolves go, 19 wolves come back, but one of them's an actual wolf.
It's like, that's not Aunt Beatrice, guys. But yeah, I think there was like an incident, and that's why he's so careful now.
Do we think?
Go ahead.
Do we think that Anthony, or Uncle Anthony, I guess, is happy in his role of maintaining the spreadsheets in the order, or is it something that he does out of necessity and maybe doesn't necessarily find joy in?
I think he's a little bit of a curmudgeon, so you wouldn't like, no one would be able to tell like, oh, this is doing something good for his mental health. But I think it brings him a lot of peace of mind to take on this role more than like actual joy. It's kind of more of like an anxiety quelling tactic. And at the same time, he would not relinquish this role to another person because he wouldn't trust anybody else to do it.
That was going to be my follow-up. Is there anyone sort of the successor? Because, you know, the Aunt Olivia is getting on in years, as well as Uncle Anthony. So is there any successor or trying to be a successor?
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm gunning for it. Which is one of the things, because like that's a typically male role, like in the, you know, as the family considers it. It's like usually the partner of the matriarch. And so like, and if we've ever had like lesbian matriarchs, they've also been kind of considered out of the running, I think, for the most part, just assumed to be. Like no one would say like, oh no, because they're lesbians, like clearly her partner cannot be. It's just kind of always just kind of automatically naturally gravitated that way. But I like the idea. I am also soothed by spreadsheets, let's say. And I like the idea of feeling like I have a meaningful contribution. And this seems like the way I could have that, but it's not been easy trying to pitch myself.
What's it been like trying to get some modicum of, I guess, control with Uncle Anthony?
I think I've just offered to help a bunch, and like most of the time he's like, no, I've got this. Like, it's okay. Like, go hang out with like X, Y, and Z other person, or like go help the women prepare or whatever. And I think like I try to swoop in when it's like some months I imagine are especially chaotic, and I try to like take advantage of that and exploit the chaos to be like, you need me right now. Like I'm the only one who can help you and who's willing to let me help you. And I think with that, we're ready for the interlude, which I will share with everyone. And then since Jeremy, you would be next in turn order, do you mind reading that out loud and being the first person to answer?
Sure. Okay. Some of your family members started quoting things about gender identity that they learned from questionable sources. Did you intervene? Yes or no? What was the cost? I did. I intervened. I spoke up, vehemently spoke up. And I think that might be why I'm not living with my parents anymore. Yeah, I think we got into a huge fight about it, and I left. They didn't kick me out, but I was like, fuck this. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Is it a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Because we're not supposed to do follow questions
Never mind
during
then.
interludes. I know it's like I know. But you can try to work it into a further follow-up question, just like
Nice.
It might come out later.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of like that. I like that shift. Okay, sorry.
Oh no, it's good. Kristin, you are next in
Oh.
turn order, so you will also answer this question.
So yes, I absolutely did. I did intervene. I was just trying to decide if it's Jazz's parents or not. Jazz, do you have any feelings on that?
I'm fine either way.
Okay. Then I think I think that after whatever Isabella found out either through the family or directly from Jazz, I think that she went over to speak with their parents about it and kind of echoed what Jazz had said, which is the right thing, right? Don't say that. That's, and I don't know that there was a big cost in Isabella's mind. Like, I'm guessing their parents don't care for Isabella anymore, but I'm not sure that Isabella views that as a loss. So I'm going to say that the cost is low. Yeah.
Then Mariam?
Yeah, I think because, B-Day twins, I probably had come along and I was basically the echo chamber. But also I might have been the snarky one and perhaps didn't really help in changing their opinion. If might have put them more on a defensive than anything. I definitely did not help the situation. Especially saying things like, really? You're getting this from Fox News? You realize we're werewolves. We're wolves.
We can't trust the foxes.
And yeah, I think the cost is that perhaps if anyone wants help in maybe tackling difficult subjects and needs a cousin to tag along, it's Isabella they tag, not me.
Yeah.
I think that Cass is actually, I think in earlier years when they were younger, they absolutely would have intervened in like a more straightforward way. But as time has gone on and they've kind of witnessed how the family deals with this thing over and over again, and it's like, and they keep insisting that like, oh, like, I just don't understand, or like, well, I'm actually worried about this thing. Like, it's not actually that I'm like prejudiced. It's just that I don't like, I genuinely believe blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a lot of excuses, right? And I think because those excuses always come up, Cass is now like very jaded and just doesn't have the energy anymore. It's kind of like suffering from permanent burnout when it comes to having these conversations. So I think they didn't intervene and they were kind of on the sidelines during this. But what happened later, once it was kind of worked out, where it's like, where's Jazz gonna go? Okay, they're gonna go with Cass and like live in their apartment that's kind of like not that far from the family home. But I imagine it's kind of closer to, it's like on the outskirts of whatever city is nearest us. There was probably like a very stern texting argument that happened, like a very like aggressive texting conversation where your parents were just like, oh, are you going to like, what ideas are you going to like put in their head? Well, are you sure you can do this as like a really big responsibility? Like, you're going to see soon that we were right. It was kind of that thing. And I think I chewed them out over text, and that was like it. It's been just like silence between us now. And the cost of that was like, I don't know if I was fully prepared to take on caregiver responsibilities at the age of like, what was I say, 26, I think. Maybe 27, 26, I think.
26.
Yeah, like that's to like take care of a teenager that's pretty young still. But that was like the thing that sealed the deal, where like now the rest of the family is like, well, you've gotten yourself involved in this way. It is on you now to, this, there's no going back. This is the point of no return. And that is our interlude 1. And this will be potentially a good place to break, or we can do it after the next phase, depending on what you all are feeling.
We could go take a quick stretch right now and
Sure.
come back in a bit.
Cool.
All right.
Sounds
Yeah, we will be right back. Go stretch, use the facilities, what have you. We'll be back in 5. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our game of Women Are Werewolves with our wonderful guest, Julian. And we had basically made our little family, as well as answered a question about what happened when we called people out on some questionable gender identity politics. And I will now hand it back to Julian.
Cool. Yeah. So we just finished interlude 1, which we all took turns answering the same question. And now we're going into the gender phase of the game, where now you can go back to asking follow-up questions after someone's answered the prompt. And the turn order continues. So Jeremy, I am sending this your way.
Okay. So you once confided in your family's matriarch about the truth of your gender. What comfort did she offer that you did not find comforting at all? Ooh. So our family's matriarch is Olivia. And yeah, so I think that she told me, I think I told her that I don't think I'm a girl or a woman. I think at least not exclusively, not only. And her response was don't worry, was something along the lines of don't worry, you'll still change. You'll still change. The moon knows what you are. And yeah. And I assumed she was right.
How long ago was that?
I think it was a while ago. I think it was a pretty long time. I mean, I think so I'm 17 now. I think I was maybe 11 or 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have another one. I'm sorry. Do you still feel that she's right?
I think that's part of why I'm unsure now. Because I think that I've had love after, and I've definitely had grief. And I expected to change and I didn't. And so I think there's a part of me that wonders, is that because I haven't really felt love, or maybe didn't really feel grief? Like, was I not upset enough about leaving my parents? Or was she wrong? I don't know.
Have you talked to Cass at all about this, like disclosed any of what happened since we've been living together?
I don't think I have. Like, I think I'm really appreciative that you let me live here, but I think I don't know about that text message conversation you had. And so I think I don't, what I know is that you didn't, you weren't one of the cousins who showed up to my parents' house and stood up for me. And so I don't know how much I can open up to you.
Love it. Love the angst. Has your relationship with, it's Auntie Olivia, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Has it changed, or how have you seen it change since that
So we established earlier that I'm her favorite, right?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I don't know. I think for years, I think there was a part of me that felt like she was my favorite, or that I was her favorite because of a lie or something. Felt like maybe I was lying to her in some way to make her my favorite, or to, and that's why I still got to like be so close to her. Um, but then I think more recently, when I thought I was going to change and I didn't, ever since then, I think I question every look she gives me. I don't know. I don't know what they mean. And she's not the type of person to just sit me down and tell me all her feelings. So, and I'm not the type to ask.
Fair.
Yeah.
There aren't any other. Oh, go on.
I was say, so I think it's tense, but I don't know if that's in my head.
I like it.
If there aren't any other follow-up questions, I'm going to send this next prompt over to you, Kristin.
Okay. Oof. You often overhear the adults of your family reinforcing gendered stereotypes amongst the children. What do you do when this happens? What do you really wish you could do instead? So what I do is, without addressing it head on to the children. So without saying what those adults just told you is completely incorrect and here's why, I show them what I feel is correct, which is there not being any gendered stereotypes. And I do this through, I think, telling them stories and reading books with them and taking them to the movies to kind of bring that side of things into their life. What I wish I could do, I think, is what I don't, which is tell them sometimes adults suck and they're wrong. And this is one of those times. I think maybe at times I use their age as a little bit of an excuse to say, well, I'll do that, but I just can't do it now. But it's a little uncomfortable also for me. Like, I fully believe that there should not be gendered stereotypes, but I think that Isabella is a little uncomfortable with like family confrontation. And so that's another reason why she hasn't just outright said anything, even though that's what she wishes she could do.
What's the strangest intervention you've had to do?
The strangest intervention. Oh, so I think that one of our other aunts or uncles was almost like lecturing the children, right? Like, like in my head, there's like this PowerPoint of like gendered stereotypes that they're giving. And I like came in and ushered them out and like, I think I faked a fire drill. I was like, and it's time for a fire drill, family safety first, and like ushered everyone outside to kind of break up what was happening.
I feel like the person was like, but I have a color chart that I had to go through.
I also may have dumped water on their laptop on the way out. Whoops.
I'm curious who or if there's any of the kids no, actually, yeah, who who of the kids do you feel the most protective of young people?
Yeah, I think that I was trying to see if I want to give them an age. I think that it's a little girl around, I'm gonna have to name her now, darn it, who's around 10 or 11. And I think that she has expressed to me in different ways being gender fluid. And so I'm the most protective of her because I don't want her at this age to feel like anything she's feeling is harmful or incorrect. And so I intervene the most often, I think. And I still can't think of a name.
How about Beatrice after Aunt Beatrice?
Thank you. I like that.
What is the repercussion you have faced for one of your interventions, like from the rest of the family?
Oh, good one. I think that one of the uncles overheard me talking with her after I gave her like a graphic novel. And I think that he was pretty upset with me. And I think that it caused waves for a little bit in the family. But I'm going to say Isabella didn't speak up quite enough. And so I think the repercussion is really her own guilt of not taking the opportunity to take a clearer, firmer stance because of her avoidance of confrontation.
Any other follow-up questions? Well, then, Mariam, I am sending you the next prompt.
Ooh. How old were you when you first consciously questioned whether you belonged in the wilds or in the house? What prompted this introspection? I think it might have been sort of like subconsciously while I was a tween. But it definitely, I had like a serious, almost existential crisis the first time Isabella turned and I didn't. And I was just like maybe just a little bit after, but for those couple of days, like for that whole month, because I think you might have transformed, if you're okay with this, on the first new moon of when, like, and I on the next. So there was this month gap where I was like, wait, do I really belong here? Am I not supposed to? Is this like this entire identity crisis happened during that 1 month? And especially during when you transformed again on the full moon, which was like 14 days later, and I also didn't at that time. Mm-hmm. It was even further sort of like, well, okay, I guess not. Yeah.
Did we talk about it?
I think so, but it was closer to the end of that closer to the end of the month rather than earlier on, because we've done everything together, and then some people started commenting about, oh, like there was a little competition that started creeping in that was compounded by the fact that I didn't turn. But eventually, I think we might have, in the wilds or whatever, I was maybe being passive aggressive and snarky, and it just kind of came out and blew up, sort of. We made up after, but it was just that first time we had like a really big fight.
Yeah. Oh, our first really big fight.
It's like, why are you always better than me, huh?
Oh. Poor Isabella. She does not like confrontation.
Were there any family members that were aware of this kind of blow up, either because of like, you told them about it, or they like witnessed something?
They heard it.
Okay.
Everyone in the woods and a couple of miles heard the blow up.
Nice.
Did anyone try to like give you guidance of any sort?
They probably tried to, but I probably was not in the mood to listen. I literally was just blowing up everywhere, and that might have been that actually might have been that grief of not turning. I hadn't experienced huge grief before that. The grief of I did not do, like, we didn't twin on this sort of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the sort of making up and resolving it was probably that sort of light at the end of the tunnel that then when the new moon happened, I transformed.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Any other follow-up questions? Then I will read my prompt, which is, the men of your family have certain qualities that are different from normal humans. Which of these qualities are considered the most masculine? How have these standards informed your own sense of belonging? So back to Uncle Anthony for a bit here. I think one of the things that for some reason is considered to be like particularly masculine in our family, and that like all the like men try to emulate, is this idea of like constant productivity almost, where it's like, okay, as soon as we get together, there's no down, like we have to really earn our downtime, and the downtime comes like literally when there is like nothing else left that could possibly be done. So I think one of the things that happens during the family gatherings is that like while people are off, you know, roaming the woods, the men are like fixing shelves that have fallen, or cabinets that are, you know, have loose hinges or squeaky, like doors that have gotten weird. They're like going up into like this dusty, like broken down attic, like trying to make it into like a functional room that isn't just like the scary attic room. They're, you know, doing massive gardening projects, even just like trying to like come up with a bunch of different like home improvement projects, and also like maybe baking things even after dinner is over, and like and part of this cleaning, it's like watch all of like the chore things that are part of it, and then making up chores that like really don't need to be done, just so that they can feel like, okay, the women aren't out there. And I think part of it is that there's this thinking of like the women are out there doing this thing that we don't really talk about as men. Like it's not like okay for us to really talk about what the women do, because, and part of that I think is we don't want to come across as envious of any in any way, that like there are people who get to go out there and do this really rad thing, which is like transforming into a wolf and like running around and stuff. And we need to never come off as like longing for this thing that we don't have. And so we're going to just like be really, really, really productive instead. And for Cass, what that means is trying to also like, I'm never going to talk about the woods or wolf forms unless like I absolutely have to. I really want to be in this kind of, I both want to be part of this boys club atmosphere, but also I don't like really recognize myself there. So I'm going to do my damnedest to buckle down on this productivity thing. And that's why I've also like gotten really into the spreadsheets. It's like, I want to like, I want to be contributing to like, oh, here's another project that we could all be working on, so that they'll kind of accept me as part of that group. But I'm also a little bit afraid of being fully accepted into that group, because I don't know if I want a permanent like residency there.
So is there like a code word for the men when, you know, the women are in the wilds, like, you know, oh, Aunt Luna's in town?
Luna's in town. I think, God, there should be some kind of weird term for like what the men are doing while like the women are running around in the woods. I'm trying to like, I was thinking like, they're not roosting, that's not quite it. It's like I feel like they have funny ways of like talking about, I can't think of anything great right now, but like I do feel like they have not nicknames, but like slang they've come up with for like getting down to business once like the women are out in the wilds. And that's part
Lunar
of it.
cleaning.
It's like, Yeah, looter, gotta go do the looter clean, the looter building. I think, yeah, they probably have their own lingo for everything.
Has Kaz ever either not gone with the other wolves after changing or come back early to try to observe what the men in the family are doing while we're gone?
So because I think people expected Kaz to have a wolf form.
Oh,
And
it's right, a
then,
wolf form.
yeah, and then when they didn't, no, it's cool. I think they've tried going out into the wolves with everybody, into the wolves, into the woods, too many W words, with everyone every once in a while to see, like, as a human, to see how that feels. And like, sometimes it feels nice and sometimes it feels really just wrong.
Yeah.
And more often than not, it feels less wrong to be at the house. And at first, I think it was very much like Cass is going to go do their own thing in the corner, like read a book or something, because we don't really know what to do with them. And then it kind of has steadily become, well, you're here anyway, we might as well put you to use. And I've been like very eager to be of use. So that was a fairly easy transition. Then if there's no follow-up questions there, we are ready for interlude 2. Once I can find it.
The hardest part about this is the no follow-up questions.
So I'm going to share this with everyone. And Jeremy, do you mind also? I know, because the turn order just always ends up like this. Do you mind being the one to read this out loud and starting us off?
It's totally fine. You once asked your family for something small but gender confirming. What did they give you instead? What did it mean to you? Oh, something small but gender confirming. I'm struggling with this one.
I have an idea for mine if you would rather me go first, but I don't want to overstep.
Is that cool, folks?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Some questions, right? We need to like take a minute. So I think what Isabella asked for that was small but gender confirming is, and it wasn't recently, but I think when she was like a tween, she asked for like her first set of like makeup, but just wanted like lip gloss and mascara, let's say. But instead received like a kit of makeup, like palettes, is that what they're called? Like I mean, just a lot of makeup. And I think that for her, it felt like in order to lean into, like in order to be feminine enough for this family, she had to constantly be showing that she's feminine by wearing all of this makeup instead of the little bit that she was more comfortable with.
Why don't we just keep going in the Mariam, do you mind going next?
Yeah. I think for our family in particular, we get, especially once we are able to transform, we get collars sort of like signifying, and I had asked for something not in the usual color that our family gets, and I had asked for something in just plain black, like something very simple, and they kind of went overboard and got me like something that had like spikes and like studs and very big and flashy, and that was not something I wanted either. And I wore it once and almost got picked up by animal services. And after that, I realized that if there's anything I want, I probably should get it myself instead of asking for my family, because there's less margin of error. And after that, anytime I've asked for something sort of not in, and that wasn't the first time, there were several other instances that further gave me that mindset of, if I want something, I should just get it myself.
Mhm.
I have a lot of S&M gear, which nothing wrong with the S&M gear, but it was like, that was not my style. That was not what I asked for.
I think for Cass, what it was that first instance of asking for what is like considered in the family to be like a typically masculine responsibility of like, let's build a thing, let's fix a thing, let's clean a thing. And it was that first time where and Uncle Anthony was just like, why? Why would you want to like do this? And instead of actually giving me one of those like typical responsibilities, he was like, how about you just you go outside and you make sure that like the women are okay, like just hang out with them, make sure that they're okay, like be out there and just like keep an eye out, like, because it was kind of like, I don't know what to do with you. You probably, I don't feel like you should be in here, but if you're not transforming and you're not like out in the woods, and like I could literally be in the place that is in between, which is kind of like outside of the house, but not like fully like in the wilds. And it was like just the most boring, awkward night of my life, just like standing out there, digging around on my phone, being like, I don't, this is terrible. I wish I never asked for anything. And then Jeremy, will move on back to you now.
Yeah. I think so I think that there's when we hit a certain age, maybe 13, let's say, there's a there's just like a piece of jewelry that people get, and it's a very gendered piece of jewelry. There's like one, the men get one, the women get another. The women get something that it's not always the same, but they always get something that's a wolf on it, of some kind. And I think the men get something that's it's literally like a hammer or a like some sort of symbol of productivity, of like things like making things, building things, doing things. And I sheepishly asked my Aunt Olivia if she could tell my mom or my parents that I didn't need either, that I didn't really want either of them. Like that I wondered if I could get something that looked that like that I guess that neither one really felt right. And I was like, maybe I could get something similar but different. My auntie said, she said, she smiled and she's like, I understand. And then I got the wolf jewelry with a note from my parents saying that Auntie Olivia said she was or that you were very concerned that you might not end up changing, and we just want to reassure you that like the moon knows. And so there was it was a wolf actually with a moon on it, like on a bracelet.
I love that.
So with the end of interlude 2, we now enter the family phase of the deck. And just to keep with the turn order, Kristin, I'm going to send you the first prompt for family, and we can answer follow-up, or we can ask follow-up questions again.
Oh, you sent it.
Yeah, sorry.
I was looking at the screen. There is a tradition you used to love that you no longer feel comfortable participating in. What do you tell your family when they ask you to join back in? Let's see, there's a tradition that you love. So although I still bake and cook to unwind, I think that that's something that I do on my own, right? We established that it's outside a family gathering. So it's probably something I do at my own place, maybe with a couple of my cousins, but not in that big family way. And I think that for a while, I used to cook or I used to bake after dinner with the men in the family. And then as I got older, I realized that I was the only one of like the females that baked with the men. And so and I think that people commented on it. And so I started to kind of back away from it, even though it's something that I did like. The discomfort came from the comments from the other family members. So when I think, I don't want everything to be on Uncle Anthony. When one of our male cousins asked me to join back in, I think that I think that I just kind of blew him off. And even though Isabella's non-confrontational, I think that she like had a snotty teenager attitude about it. And it was just kind of like, why would I want to do that? Yeah.
What is the dish or like baked good that you most enjoyed making?
Laughing because you beat me to it.
This group can talk about food. I'm here for it. Macarons.
Yeah. Sorry, I love macarons.
Me too. I have a new obsession with them. Isabella has a long-term obsession with them. So yeah, that was the favorite.
Do you still make them on your own? Or do you?
No. I don't think she makes them. I think she bakes a bunch of other stuff, but she no longer makes a macaron. She just says they're too difficult anyway and not worth it. They're totally worth it.
They are very difficult to make, though. That's true.
They are.
They are. Do you have like sort of bake parties with people you trust who don't believe in the gender roles of baking, like people like other members of the family who would enjoy baking and don't care about the gender role in it?
Yeah, I really like the idea that anyone from the three of you that want to be there, because I don't want to speak for anyone's characters, would be there. And then also Beatrice, our young cousin. I think we make cakes and brownies, and now I want dessert. But yes, I think we do that.
I think you teach me baking.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Otherwise, at my place, the oven was used as a storage closet.
I mean, it's not bad use. We can just move those things to the counter, bake, and just put them back in when the oven cools.
Any other follow-up questions? Cool. So I'm going to send the next prompt to Mariam.
Okay. There is a queer relative you always looked up to who is voluntarily estranged from the family. What was your last interaction with them before they left? How does your family talk about them now? Oof. I think this my last interaction with them was definitely when I was really, really young and didn't necessarily have the ability to say something or change their mind enough to stay. And I always think about like almost like a regret of like, I wish, especially now that I know what I know, that I wish I had said something, and it's been perhaps a little hard to find them as they're strange and nobody will tell me how to contact them. In fact, I don't think they're not even referred to by name anymore. And with enough time, I at least have forgotten what their name even was. I just know their face. And my last interaction, I think, was they had come to see some of the children they had gotten fond of, specifically just to say goodbye. It's like, I'm going to be going away for a long time. And my last interaction was like, okay, cool. Can you get me this particular, like, confectionery from this place you said you were going? Not realizing they're not coming back. And they just said, yeah, yeah, sure. Whatever you like, kiddo, sort of a thing. And for like a year or two, I was mad that they never came back with the candy.
Have you made any attempt at like trying to ask other family members what happened to, or like where they went, or like what's going on with them now? Or have you done anything like akin to like social media stalking to try to like, granted you don't know the name, so like it's going to be tricky, but have you tried to do any like investigative
Definitely
work,
tried, and it's been really difficult. And I think I'm trying to work on finding, like, there's always one person who is like the family tree keeper of, like, just collects pictures of gatherings and everything. And it's been quite the effort trying to go through that and seeing if there's a name there, but a lot of the pictures have been removed, or I think because it was such a big like betrayal, estrangement, by sort of seen by the family, that there's literally cutouts, holes where they used to be. And people, and when asked why is there a hole there, oh, moths got into it. That's a very specific moth there, uncle.
So I'm curious, have you forgiven them for never coming back or reaching out?
I think I have eventually, especially once I started going through puberty and sort of realizing what my identity is. But definitely the kid in me still wants that confectionery. Although that's maybe a clue of where to start looking for them. If they told the truth of where they were going.
Any other follow-ups? Okay, then I will go next. An important responsibility was granted to you in adolescence, in part based on your gender. In what ways do you no longer feel like the right person for the job? Why are you still hesitant to give it up? So you know what? I'm going to do something a little weird and twisty and tangly with this one. I'm going to say that earlier in life, I was actually kind of granted this role of caregiver in like a babysitter kind of sense. But as I drifted away from things that were kind of like more femme in the eyes of the family, it was kind of assumed that like, this is something that it's a kind of very like Babysitters Club vibe, right? Where it's like, this is a thing that like preteen and teenage girls in the family do. Mm-hmm. Like, this is like their purview, except for like when the women are out in the woods, then it's like the men are straddled with all the kids who do not transform. And I'm sure like, because they're not, this is like one time a month that they have to do that. It's kind of like a bit of a, it's a bit of a circus. But I think it does feel weird that like I don't do the babysitting aspect of it anymore in that kind of more like regular sense, but I am kind of like a more serious caregiver now, because like I am taking care of Jazz, like I am making sure that their needs are met and that like things like they have a place to stay and everything is cool there. And it's kind of been like a giant question mark for a lot of family members, because in some senses that feels like a very hard femme gesture to them. Like they think that that's like you see, it was like a phase, like things are normalizing now. It just took you like a while. It took you to like get to your mid-20s for things to like sort themselves out. Like they don't say that. They say it in like very roundabout ways. And so I think like I don't want to like give it up, but there is a part of me that feels like, oof, because the family sees it as such a gendered thing, it feels weird to me.
Who do you talk to about that? Like who do you share what you're feeling with? And importantly, have I overheard you? But
you know what? I think like I have a therapist. I think it's a recent thing. And I was just like, fine, I obviously need a therapist now. I think it took a while and now it's happening. But I do the therapy. I do a lot of the sessions from home, like over video chat. And I think the apartment's like pretty small. Like it's not like a big thing. It's probably like, it's not a studio. Like we do have separate bedrooms, but the walls are thin and it's not like we have all this space to like buffer us. So I think you've probably just like overheard me with my therapist being like kind of freaking out and like trying to avoid the word werewolf or like anything having to do with wolves. So, like I can't tell my therapist that like, also like this major factor of it is that like some of us are werewolves. So I've come up with some interesting language to act as a metaphor for that. And if there are not any other follow-up questions, I'm going to send the next prompt to you, Jeremy.
Much to your relief, there's one aspect of this monthly tradition that your family abandoned in the past few years. What part did you play in its removal? Does anyone in your family resent you for this? So the monthly tradition, the family comes together, the women go out into the wild, the men stay home and take care of things and eat beforehand. What part of the tradition has the family abandoned? I think that there was, so I think that after the meal, there was a really, after the meal and even before the women leave for the wild, there was a really, even during the meal, there was a separation between the men and the women. So I think even where the eating happened, how people sat at the tables, how people are arranged was very gendered. And that piece of it was gendered for all ages, all the way down to children. And I think that that no longer happens. There's more intermingling beforehand, which I'm grateful for a lot of reasons. I mean, partly I just never knew where I should be. What part did I play? I don't think it was direct. I think it has to do with after my blow up with my parents. I think I just kind of refused. I think I stayed probably near, even though I wasn't someone who changed, sometimes I would stay near my cousins here who I really trusted and who did change. Sometimes I would stay near you because you were the person who I felt, Cass, you can't see how I can. Sometimes I would stay near you, Cass, because I see you as a bit of a shield between you and my parents. And I think I just kind of refused. And I think there had been enough fights about me and where I was going to be that people didn't push me to sit somewhere different. And it kind of slowly started to trickle into the other young people in particular. I think especially started being like, if they're sitting there, like where, like I'm going to go sit over there too. And just kind of slowly got less and less enforced. So there's at least one space where the family was together where I felt like there was not, where I can just kind of be wherever.
Pool table.
Yeah.
Do your parents? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Do your parents still come to the gatherings after the rift? And are they welcome there by the rest of the?
I think they do. I think they're welcome. I think that it's one of those things where like those really awkward holiday dinners. It's like that, but once a month, where like everyone's invited, but that people are saying shady things afterwards, maybe even while they think they're out of earshot or actually out of earshot. I think that for as much frustration as I have with Auntie Olivia, I think that I can see the animosity she has towards my parents. Because like, regardless, that's not how you do things. Even if they were right in terms of, even if they were right about me, they were wrong about how to respond to me.
Nice. That was my exact question, Mariam.
Do you have, or have you like done that thing that I, totally do not do IRL, of like playing conversations with your parents, like in your head and like rehearsing things and being like, okay, like this is the thing that I would want to say to them that would really show them how I feel, and like even if they didn't accept it, I could be really proud of it, like kind of just doing that rehearsal thing. And like, what are the circumstances of that make-believe scene like in your head?
Yeah. So back to the comic, I draw these scenes out between me and my parents. And I think that Isabel is the only person I've shown those comics to. They don't say that it's me, but like it's really transparently me. And I think the circumstances of that are, it varies. Sometimes it's at the family gathering. And it's me telling them who I am, and that they need to accept me for who I am, and that they should have come after me. I think that's the key idea, is that they shouldn't have let me just leave. Again, I don't know that they reached out to you and got really angry at you, but and usually it ends with them apologizing very profusely and me walking away and still continuing to live with my cool cousins. But ... And there's a panel that says something like, and then they were sad forever. That's how it ends in my mind.
We all like live on the same floor or something. Like we all have our own apartments, but we're like on the same building.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's like every sitcom where everyone's like very conveniently living within like the same apartment complex or like across the street.
Yep.
Any other follow-up questions? I think we are ready then for interlude 3. And Kristin, if you could read this out loud and be the first to answer.
Yeah. Another community invites you to attend their own monthly gathering. It is far away from your family home, so you would not be able to attend both during the same full moon. How do you reconcile your feelings about your options? What do you decide? So I know we didn't talk a whole lot about maybe other communities, but I do think that Isabella is probably like a social butterfly. Sorry, Kristin is not in real life, and so I couldn't even get through that with a straight face. But Isabella is a social butterfly, and I think has another community, set of friends that she is very close with. She does not love them as much as her cousins, of course, but she does want to go and she does want to experience their traditions and their rituals and see what that is like. So I think she reconciles her feelings by being defensive and thinking that she's always at the family gatherings and that she does her part all the time. And she deserves, like, not deserves, but like she has to go through in her mind and justify why it's okay that she goes to this other community for this monthly gathering. So I think that she does go for this month. Yeah, I think she goes, and I know it doesn't ask, but I think she has a good time.
Then Mariam.
Yeah, I think that in maybe sort of trying to find other friends, or in trying to search for that one cousin, that Beria gets involved, like finds other were communities and is invited to go to some to a community that is werebears. And initially was maybe mad at Isabella for choosing at some point to go, because it's like, but we always do this together. And said, fine, if you're not gonna be here on this particular month, I'm gonna find another place where I can go because I don't want to be here. And kind of does it out of spite, but ends up enjoying themselves. And maybe might consider not coming every month to the family gathering. But also was told, hey, you can invite anyone with you. So it's sort of like, hey, if you want to go, let's see some werebears, come with me.
I think for Cass, it was that it wasn't like another werewolf family or group. It was like kind of like a new agey or like a witchy group. Because I'm trying to think of like other reasons people would gather on the full moon. Because I think part of it was like Cass was like, I don't transform, so I don't necessarily need to be with other people who do transform. Like that was the initial thinking. And so they started hanging out with like this other crew that was like into kind of supernatural stuff, but not like not in like the like we were literally gonna go out into like the woods and transform the wolves like variety. But then it kind of started feeling weird to miss the family gathering because like 1 month missing it felt weird enough, and then when I contemplated missing it like 2 months in a row, it made me really anxious. I think just because also like that's what I'm used to doing. And I also discovered that even though I don't transform, because it was such a like big part of like me growing up, like being in this environment where like I can talk freely about this thing, that ended up being more important to me and like weirdly my mental health than I anticipated. So I do kind of like try to switch it up of like, all right, sometimes I will go to this other thing, but I'm not going to like berate myself internally for when I feel like I do want to go back to the family home and like be with them. Like I'm not going to like give myself a really hard time about it, which works sometimes. And then, yeah, Jeremy.
Yeah. So I think that so the gathering I go to, or the gathering I get invited to, isn't specifically a full moon gathering. The time I get invited just happens to be on the full moon. It's a local-ish. I mean, it's not that local, I guess, but it's a group I met online, and it's like other queer and trans young people. They're all like around my age, 16, 17, 18. And it's oh, nope, that's what it is. It's a camp. It's a queer teen summer camp. And so I would be missing 3 of the full moon gatherings. And like that feels, to me, feels unheard of. Whether or not it is, it feels unheard of. But I think partly probably inspired by some of the other family members here who have attended other gatherings. I decide that I want to go for it, and I think I asked Cass like permission. You're my caregiver. And I imagine you're probably pretty supportive.
Yeah.
And since I don't change, I don't have to worry about hiding anything. I just need not tell them anything. And it feels good to just get that distance. It's the longest I think I've been away, and I really needed it. And I think it feels good enough that I'm trying to decide, like, by the end of it, I think I'm trying to decide like what that means for me in terms of like, am I gonna go off to college one day? Am I gonna move away as I'm an adult? Am I gonna stay here? I know I want to stay connected to a lot of these folks, but maybe I don't need to be a part of this ritual to be a part of this family. I think I'm trying to figure that out.
And that leads us to our epilogue, which, Kristin, if you could read this out loud. And then again, this works as an interlude, so we'll all be answering individually the same question.
Okay. Time passes. Whatever family you have chosen for yourself, you now make the rules for the monthly gathering. How are your gatherings different from the ones you experienced before? Let's see. I think that in the monthly gatherings that that I make the rules for, I think the first thing Isabella did was have everyone cook in the kitchen together. Everyone who wanted to, right? You don't have to if it's not your thing. But I think that it's gone on for so long now that we've managed to kind of I don't want to say forget, but the new norm is that everyone in the kitchen cooks and bakes together. I do think that there are some things that she held on to. Like I think that she still enjoys transforming, and I think that she still wears big gold hoop earrings when she does so. I don't know why that was in my head. But I think that the gatherings feel a little less tense than the ones I experienced before, and a little more welcoming. And I don't think that I realized that the family gatherings I had been a part of had a feeling of unwelcome until I kind of until I got older and then made the rules for this one, and then realized that it's for Isabella is a much needed and improved change.
Mariam?
Yeah, so I think to sort of, rather than to put all the work or sort of hosting on one person or one place, especially since maybe we're all not necessarily in the same location anymore, we change it up, like we rotate as hosts. So where I am at the moment, I think I'm actually in a group of creatures. We're all sort of varying where like it's not just werewolves. It turns out there's werebears, there's foxes. Who knew? And it's sort of like a ragtag group of people who can transform, and even those who can't, they're there to be in the company of those who can. And there's no expectations on them to do any, like, the women go do the things, the men do the stuff. There is a there's a rainbow of transformers, of gender identities amongst the transformers and those who don't. And I eventually did find, I think, the cousin. And the gatherings are different in that, yes, there might be a bit of a divide, but that's only for sort of allowing those who transform sort of, okay, we're going to go to the wilds, and also making sure the people who can't have something to do while the transformers are going and transforming. But there's no expectations, especially gender expectations, of what that is.
I think for Cass, sometimes I think like probably they end up going to like one of your hosted events. Like they kind of jump around a bit every once in a while, but fairly regularly, like most months, they kind of host a big camping party because they realize that part of like what the thing was that they feel like very connected to nature and like they need to be out in nature. And there is something about being out there with other people in some kind of community that feels very grounding. And so what the form of like their gathering is that like a bunch of people kind of set up tents together, and like some people might have like camper vans and whatnot, and like everyone, they cook over an open fire and tell ghost stories and they do s'mores, like do the whole thing, play forest games, I don't know, whatever games people play when they go camping, and like people can also, there's like time for people to go off in the woods alone if they want to, if like there are people who like transform, and there is kind of like solo time for everyone, and then there's like group time for everyone, and it is structured, like there is still that spreadsheet loving aspect of Cass's identity, where it's like, okay, this is the slot of time in which people can do like their solo thing. Like this is the time when like this activity will be available. And like this is a time where it's like people might be sleeping, so please don't make so much noise during this particular hour of the night. And that is what ends up kind of, I think it takes a little while to like get to that point of like realizing that's what feels right to them. But once they reach it, it kind of feels like the perfect balance of things. And like every once in a while, somebody else gets to be in charge of that so that they can drop by one of your gatherings.
I love it.
Yeah. Then Jeremy.
So I think that Jazz, forgot my name for a second. I think that Jazz, I think that I end up living in a like a big old queer co-op. I insisted when we moved in that it should be called the Wolf House, but Wolf Home, which is a wonderful movie, by the way. And so there's like 7 or 8 of us. None of us transform, but we've been living together long enough, we're close enough that everyone knows about my family. I think that some of them, if not all of them, have actually come to the original family gathering. But I think so when we host monthly, when we host the event, it's in some ways similar, in some ways the exact opposite of when Cass hosts it. There are no spreadsheets, there's no schedule, but we do still all go out to the woods together. And the idea is that none of us sleep. We stay up all night. We all stay up all night, and we all are exhausted the next morning. And who gives a fuck whether or not we transform? We're still all out there doing this together. Some of us might run off by ourselves at times, but the point is that we all eat together, we all go out to the woods together, and then we all come back in the morning together. And it's really about that again, that being together. And and having a space to kind of let loose and be free for a night, where no one, because it's just us and the other werefolks and the other folks who know about werefolks, and no one's there to like tell us how we should act.
Cool. And that's the game. That's Women Are Werewolves.
I love it.
Yay.
Oh, I just remembered something where you know that cave behind the waterfall? You can only reach it when you're in wolf form.
Oh, do you have to like do a big old jump or something?
Yeah, or like you have to be like on all fours and a certain size to fit in, sort of a thing.
Oh man, yeah. I feel like I probably got my head stuck in there or something trying to be in there in human form. There is a debrief. There's a few debrief questions if you all are up for a debrief kind of situation, or I know it's also getting late. Where is my debrief? Here it is. Okay. So feel free to go as like personal or like not personal as you like. It's really just like whatever you feel. But the first one is share one of the following: a moment that felt particularly close to home, or a prompt that you had to give extra thought to. And I will go ahead and go first. I had to give a lot of these a lot of thought. But I think something that felt close to home was the whole vibe of like wanting to be part of the boys club, but like not sure why really, and does it mean that I always want to be part of the boys club, or is it simply that I don't like being barred from like any group based on like a gender thing, and kind of like working those feelings out for Cass. Like that's definitely something that I have like a recurring theme in my life of like, especially when I was younger, of kind of realizing that I was gravitating towards these groups that maybe like did not particularly want me based on like gender stuff, and trying to figure out like how do I mesh with them, how do I present myself in a way where they will like accept me as one of their own. And then kind of we'll do this however anybody is called to answer, so we don't have to go as to our turn order before.
I can go next. I think for me the question of the getting a gift that was well-meaning, definitely that, especially the way I answered it. I've had those things where I'm very careful. Either I have to be super explicit or very careful about how I say it, because it then becomes the standing order for all time. Like, for example, if I said, like, I said that I like dark chocolate, but the thing is, the actual nuance to it is I like certain types of dark chocolate, and now all I get is dark chocolate. And it's like, but I don't want dark chocolate all the time. So yeah, that to me stood out.
Me, that same question was one that I obviously had to give a lot of thought to. Thank you, Kristin, for jumping in to answer that one. And I think part of the reason is because right, the way the question was framed was like a time when you asked for something small but gender confirming, and we're kind of given something else, or what did they give you instead? And I can't imagine when I was 17 asking for something gender confirming. That is so outside of the realm of what seems even possible to have asked for from my family. And my family wasn't, and I wasn't, my family hadn't particularly rejected things, but I think well-meaning, but well-meaning is a good description. And so I think that was something that for me, I was like, what would be something that would feel safe enough to ask for, that I would be willing to ask for, or that Jazz would be willing to ask for.
It's the same question. I'm not just jumping on the bandwagon. It's the same question, because And the reason I picked that one is because I gave an answer that kind of popped into my head more quickly than answers typically do. And it wasn't until like a couple questions later that I realized that it was a very like subconscious answer, which is probably why it was there so quickly, which is, in my experience with certain people growing up, being female meant very specific things, right? Lots of makeup, waxing your eyebrows, shaving your underarms and legs all the time, right? Very, very specific things we do as women. And I think the reason it sticks out is because I didn't realize I was pulling from my own experience until, like I said, like 2 questions later. And I was like, that tricky Julian. There she goes. There they go with their questions.
I'm Trixie. And then next is, what is a piece of advice that your character would give you? And then also, what is a piece of advice you would give your character?
I probably have an answer for this. I think something similar to that. One of the last things I said, I think my character would say something like, who gives a fuck if you transform? But like, I think the advice my character would give me is like, fuck them. Like, you gotta do you, and there's gonna be people. There's always gonna be those cool cousins, whether they're biological family or not. There's always gonna be those cool cousins who are gonna support you, and there's always gonna be those other people who don't. So fuck them. And I think the advice I would give is, like, check in with people when you're not sure how they, like, what they think. Check if you care enough. I think that was one of the things that was resonating with me about Jazz, was the feeling of like, I don't know how I feel about Cass. So I think like talk to them. That would be my advice, is like, talk to them. Definitely not my advice to my younger self, current self.
This is, for some reason, this time this is tougher for me than usual. And this is usually my favorite debrief question. But like, I think my advice for Cass would be like, hey, you're like taking care of a teenager. You gotta like if you're going to take on that responsibility, you gotta like really take it on and be like very open with communication and like make things clear about like, in which ways you are supporting them and like what, like what's going on with your communication with like potential like other people who are in the picture, such as like the parents and stuff. And like, it might seem that the situation is like, oh no, like they've got it on, like they seem like, they've got it handled, like it's okay. Like, don't just like make assumptions that because it's not being talked about that it just like need to be talked about, essentially. And I feel like Cass's advice for me would be something along the lines of, and this is going to be like to do as I say, not as I do, coming from Cass, but something along the lines of like, you don't owe anyone like an explanation for like who you are and like why you feel the way you do, especially when it comes to like gender identity or your identity in general. And like, even if people see you as kind of like just not settled yet in an identity, like that doesn't, like, it is okay to be unsure of things, and it is okay to not be static in your identity and like to want different things at different times and to like identify more strongly with like different people at different times. Like that is just how it is, and you don't like owe people like a explanation, or to like, you don't need to defend yourself.
I guess I can go next. I think, like, if it isn't obvious that my character is a little wish fulfillment, I think my advice to them would be to find a sense of self outside of the family, because like the way my character was very attached to the cousins and the particular cousins and sort of like that sort of a thing. And I think Beria's advice to me would be to treasure found family and actually sort of work on being a family rather than sort of, oh, friends, I have no family, I am an adult orphan, you know, all those things. Yeah.
This is another good one. I think Isabella's advice to me would be definitely do as I say, not as I do. In that you don't, if you want to do something outside tradition or outside of family, you don't have to spend a lot of time justifying it or explaining it away or why you've earned it. It's okay just to do what you want, especially if your intention is not to harm anyone else. And I think that my advice to Isabella would be to speak up more clearly. It doesn't have to be, confrontation doesn't have to be angry or cruel. It can just be clear and honest. And just because someone has a specific title or a specific role does not mean that they are right all the time. It does not mean that you can't defend what you feel is right to that person, regardless of their title.
And then finally, just share something you were looking forward to in the next week in real life to kind of take our headspace back into the real world. For me, tomorrow, I'm playing some kind of puzzle game with friends online, and I have no idea. It's like it's called like Islander, I want to say, where it looks very cinematic, and then it's like an internet scavenger hunt, from what I understand. I know like very little about it, but I like puzzle games, so that should be fun.
That is a good question to get you out of the character headspace. I am going to be Twitch modding for a couple of panels for Big Bad, not a plug for Big Bad. I'm just genuinely looking forward to being able to be part of the conversation as a Twitch mod. I haven't done it before on a panel for a convention, so I'm really excited to be able to be part of the conversation and at the same time get to at least half listen to a few different panels. So I'm looking forward to doing that.
I will unabashedly plug Big Bad Con and say that I am plugging Big Bad, and I am really looking forward to my panel with Kristin and Mariam during Big Bad Con. That is at 9:10 p.m. Mountain Time, so that's 11:10 p.m. Eastern, 8:10 p.m. Pacific on Saturday. That is what I'm really looking forward to. And also tomorrow, I get to meet with the president and the vice president of the Pride Alliance for the university I work at, because I'm the advisor for the Pride Alliance. And we've been having trouble connecting, and so it's my first chance getting to meet with the two of them. I'm super excited to hear how the club is going.
I'm doing a lot of stuff for Big Bad. I'm definitely excited for that. Not just the panel. Also, it's kind of been a bit of my bucket list of appearing on a panel as not a diversity person and as a part of a cast. So this is great that our panel is going to be as a cast. As well as we have something to share, but we're a cast, and it's great to that feeling of being part of that cast. But also the biggest, most important thing, there's a local shawarma shop that has like a loyalty program. So we finally got into that, if you order from us 5 times, the 6th order you get a huge discount. It's that meal now. So we're gonna have like a nice big shawarma, like Arabic food thing on Saturday. So I'm looking very forward to that.
I live in for that, like the stamp like card, right? That life is just like, I have
$30 off. That's a lot of food.
Yeah, man, that is a celebration. But yeah, that's the debrief for Women Are Werewolves. And that is the game.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on our show and running this game and also playing in it. I had mentioned in the break that I was so looking forward to not only playing this game, but also playing with you, as you are someone in the TRPG community that I really look up to. So thank you so much. Yeah, if you'd like to play this game, Women Are Werewolves, you can check out the link that is posted in Twitch chat. And if you're going to be catching this on as a podcast or a VOD, it'll be there in our show notes. It's not out yet. The Kickstarter is going to be on October 26th.
Yep.
October 26th. So keep a lookout for that, and we'll also post it when it's live in our socials. And let's quickly go around the table one last time and plug ourselves and what we do, and why aren't you going to be at Big Bad Con? But we'll start first. I realized as I said that I didn't mean to call you out. It was my witty attempt at sort of being like, hey, what are you doing on Saturday, and why isn't it at Big Bad Con, sort of a thing, or why is it at Big Bad Con? But yes, please, Julian, please plug yourself so that we get to know more about you.
First, thank you so much for having me here. This was great, and I loved playing this with you all. This was fantastic. And yeah, where am I on Twitter? I'm Y Julian Kim. I'm like 99% sure that's right. On Twitter. And then Women Are Werewolves coming to Kickstarter on October 26th, being published by Ninth Level. And Big Bad Con kind of just like took me by surprise. I kind of like didn't realize the timing of it and stuff. And then by the time like I realized it was happening, it was kind of like too late for me to get in on things, because I've been very busy this autumn so far. But I am sad. I will be like rooting for you all.
Oh, thank you.
Jeremy.
Thank you again, Julian. This game was amazing. It lived up to every hope I had, and I have been very effusive about how excited I am about this game. So I'm everyone. I'm Jeremy. I'm a queer, multiracial, Black educator, streamer, and game designer. You can find me on Twitter at HarkMorper, HarkMorper. And you can find my games. I try to make games about the complexities of connecting in a world that's sometimes hostile towards you and your identities. And so you can find my games on itch, harkmorper.itch.io. Hopefully, fingers crossed, have one or two new things coming out soon.
Yay. Yeah, echoing how wonderful this game is. I was able to talk with both designers about it, and after hearing like their inspiration and creation process, I was very, very excited to play it, and it did absolutely lived up to all my hopes. So I'm Kristin. You can find me on Twitter at Kristin is no Jedi. When I'm not here, I am designing games, I'm writing for games. I also am over on Tabletop Babble, where I host a show called Tabletop Crowd, where I talk to folks who have gaming related crowdfunding projects coming out, much like Julian and Kaz. In fact, if you are watching this live, then I have an episode dropping with them next week. And if you're listening to this on our podcast or watching the VOD, it's out now. So please go listen. That is on the Geekspective Network, and it is at Tabletop Crowd. My other big project right now is Adorablins, which is a family-friendly, rules-light role-playing game where you get to play adorable little goblins that were designed by Amber, who's at Rocket Orca on Twitter, and will be coming to Kickstarter in January. Our Kickstarter pre-launch page is now up, and we're hoping to get to 100 followers by next week. It just went up this week. And so if you follow me, again, at Kristin is no Jedi, or if you follow either of the publishers, which is Dice Up Games, my company, as well as Letterman Games, then you can find the Kickstarter link there. Mariam.
So you can find me on Twitter at media_junkie. You can find me around here every alternate Thursdays, running this wonderful show with my wonderful co-hosts, and it's just a chance for me to get to know more designers and play all these cool games that I never get time to play, under the guise of a show. And aside from the big bad plug, we do have a panel which will be Saturday, October 23rd, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Hopefully there'll be a VOD for it later if you're watching it as a VOD, and we'll probably link or do something in our socials when that's out. And it's about behind the scenes of running this very show. Yeah, so if you're curious to know what it takes to run the show, sort of peek behind the veil, definitely try to attend that panel. And as for myself, I have been busy running quite a few games. There's going to be a Bluebeard's Bride special with one of my co-hosts here in it, which will be next week on Utopia. And I also have a game out called Flats and Fangs where you get to play vampire roommates. Yeah, I have quite a few things, and my Twitter's probably the best place to find it. And with that, that's our show for tonight. Please join us next time for our next show, which I believe we're playing Scarecrow next. Yeah, we're going to be playing Scarecrow, so please tune in for that. And goodbye, everyone.
Thank you again.